So I have the 1953 version of War of the Worlds.
Oh, hey, I rewatched that in preparation for this video, so I've got things
Yeah,
to say about that as well.
this is the George Powell film.
Hmm.
What I really love about this movie, aside from the fact that it's fucking beautiful, the effects are still pretty good today. The Technicolor is amazing. Um,
It's a visual spectacle. It is like it's like the Avengers of its day, kind of like that kind of budget. Like just a big, just glossy like blockbuster, you know?
Yeah. The thing I love about this movie is just the overall sense of hopelessness that there is in it.
Mm.
Because they throw literally everything at these fucking aliens and just nothing works. And then in the end, it winds up being germs. Of course, everybody knows how War of the Worlds ends.
Yeah.
But just there's this one scene
Morgan
I always
Freeman kills them, right? No, I'm just.
there's this one great scene I always remember where they try nuking the damn things, and even that doesn't work. And the general that's there at the when they're nuking him has this great speech where he's like, "Guns, tanks, bombs, they're like toys to them."
Yeah.
And like just the scenes after that of like people running through there's a point where the human race pretty much just gives up fighting these things,
Hmm.
and from that point on it's just people running in the streets and just like buildings collapsing. Like it gets very apocalyptic very fast.
Hmm.
But it's just an amazing movie. And I'm sad that none of the cast members are coming to mind. But I thought the human cast all did well. There was the
There's
main
a
guy.
lot of them, though.
You have your stock 50 scientist. But he's one of the better ones, I think, of the
Yeah,
stock.
he's fine. I like him. I like him quite a bit.
He's quite good.
He's got
Um,
like a different kind of personality from a lot of them. Like he strikes me as almost more like an Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park type, more than
yeah,
like say your stereotypical like goody two shoes scientist. Like he's a bit more kind of contrarian than your typical '50s B movie scientist. And would you say that War of the Worlds is even really a B movie?
no, it's the most A of
Yeah,
of.
no, I
Well,
agree.
I
Yeah,
think it's the most A of all the American films we've mentioned so far. Honestly,
definitely. Yeah,
it's got a huge budget on it.
yeah.
I think part of that is because of the notoriety that the story already had because of the Orson Welles radio drama, and
And there's
also
a
the book.
lot of that radio drama worked into the movie that wasn't in the original book.
Yeah, yeah, and the book, of course, the book is also obviously very famous. Um,
And they changed a lot. How do you feel about the tripods being turned into ships? And that was obviously done based on the limits of the effects at the time.
yeah, it never bothered me for one reason because this is the first version
Yeah.
of War of the Worlds I ever saw. I saw this long before the Steven Spielberg movie happened, and I hadn't read
Me
the book
too.
at that. I hadn't read the book at that time, so it never bothered me. Primarily because it's the first version that I was ever exposed to, but also because I just understood that they didn't really have the technology to do it at the time, and I'm honestly glad they didn't try to pull it off because it would have probably just ended up looking goofy, unless Harryhausen had done it like they originally were going to.
Harryhausen could have definitely pulled it off, yeah.
There was some great test footage that is around on the internet. You can go find it very easily.
I've
Of
seen that. Didn't they do the Martians too in stop motion?
yeah, the test footage I've seen is of the Martian dying, and you actually see like the body. It's not just the hand that falls out of the craft like in the actual movie. It's you actually see the body of the alien dying, and it's yet another monster that has a very similar face to like Ymir or the Kraken. Um, is when you look at the design of these aliens.
You see the aliens in the movie though.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right.
There's
There's
that scene where it stalks them through the house. That's a great scene too. That
it's a very well done scene. I don't particularly like the way the aliens look, but whatever.
No, I don't like the alien design either. But it's an interesting version of what Wells describes in the book, though.
Yeah,
Like he describes
it's a
them as
nice
being
little
these
moment.
like weirdly asymmetrical, like weird squid-like things with no lips and no noses, and yeah, it's a good approximation of that. But I would have preferred something a little more. I would have preferred something weirder, to be honest.
Yeah. Um, that whole sequence is very good because it's like a mini horror movie stuck in the middle of your sci-fi film,
Yeah.
where like the guy and the girl, I'm seriously blanking on everybody's names, but the guy and the girl they're stuck in the
Oh,
house
I
and
can't remember any of their names either. Yeah.
the aliens are sort of stalking them and like the thing comes down through the ceiling and it's like a fucking upside down periscope and it's looking around like
The
it's
probe isn't as good as I remembered it.
yeah.
And I just feel like it's just because like at one point he cuts it in half, and then he's just walking around with a bit of it, and after that I couldn't take it seriously anymore.
I also really love the way the film opens. The sort of like
Hmm.
prologue where it describes how the Martians sort of looked at all the different planets in the solar system and
Yeah.
sort of like crossed them off one by one. Like, no, we can't go to that planet for this such and such reason. And finally they get to Earth and it's like perfect.
Well, what I
Um,
also like about it is that you can definitely tell why Spielberg liked it so much because it's like a very proto Spielberg kind of movie. You can tell it's one of his biggest influences. And it's also got a very original Godzilla vibe too. In that, it feels like a documentary. There's so many characters and we get to them we see them at such specific points that it feels like a documentary that's effectively recounting this situation if it really happened. Like the new World of Worlds, the one that he actually directed, it takes a bit of a different approach to that, but even that kind of feels that way, where it's this almost like on the ground, like it gives you all the info you need to understand the scenario, but almost like a documentary would. Like especially the way it opens with like war footage too, of like oh here's World War One, World War Two, now it's the War of the Worlds.
yeah, yeah.
So
You
it's got that as well.
you mentioned before how they replaced the tripods of the original story with spaceships.
Yeah.
But one thing I love about it is that it's not like your stereotypical like saucers. Like these ships have a very elegant design. They're very swan-like.
They're also
Um,
more like tanks than they are like spaceships.
Yeah,
They're
they're
like
also
hover tanks.
they're also fucking terrifying. um,
That initial scene where the three dumbass idiots fucking go up to the ship to try and make peaceful contact with
with the
it.
white flag, and then it vaporizes them. Oh, it's
That is
amazing.
such a powerful scene. It is just because you don't see stuff like that in 50s sci-fi where just people just get completely obliterated and then you see like the silhouettes of them on the ground. Like that's really powerful stuff. It's really great.
Yeah, just all around, it's a fantastic movie.
I think the reason why it doesn't break my list like this is just because there are so many characters and there are some bizarre moments in it. Like,
It's also it's almost a proto Roland Emmerich like Independence Day.
yeah, Independence Day. I almost feel like Independence Day is a better remake of that movie than Steven Spielberg's movie is.
Yeah, oddly enough, despite all its problems. You can tell Independence Day draws a lot of inspiration from this movie because it tries to evoke a similar sense of like hopelessness against the aliens. Um,
The ship designs too are more similar to that, and then the tripods.
it uses a virus to kill the aliens, but of a different kind.
Yeah,
Um,
and well, they equate it to that too in Independence Day, where Jeff Goldblum describes it as a cold.
Yeah, but mostly the reason I think this comparison came about is that, like Independence Day, yes, War of the Worlds has a bit of an ensemble cast thing going on.
Yeah,
So if that's not your bag, then I can see why that would detract from it.
it's not even that it's not my bag. I just don't think all of the characters work in this movie.
Hmm.
Like, especially early on, before the scientist really gets involved. Like just the townspeople we see, I just don't find compelling. I do like that they decided to set it in Hollywood or in California because
Yeah.
I feel like that makes it feel more of the time. And I think that whenever somebody remakes War of the Worlds, I feel like they ought to set it in the present day. Like, I don't think doing one that's set in the period when the book was written would really work now. And they've tried it. It hasn't
They
worked.
did one.
Yeah,
Did
and
one.
it doesn't
Apparently,
work.
it was awful.
Yeah,
I think
it
it was a
doesn't work.
made-for-TV thing, right?
Yeah, and I guess if you did like a big budget version of it in a theatrical run, it would probably be better. But even still, I think that there is a certain degree of social relevance to redoing War of the Worlds. There's a certain kind of importance to it where
I also think
analyzing
that-
how our current society reacts to that very specific situation now is kind of important. Sort of like a Shin Godzilla thing, how Shin Godzilla handled that.
I also think that's another reason that the spaceship tank things work in this version as opposed to tripods, is that tripods is a very 1800s idea when you're trying to think of like what an alien would drive, you know?
Yeah, this
And
is more like Russian space, like Sputnik, like coming down and.
yeah, this is more something that obviously people in the 50s would dream up. It's a more modern take on, hey, if aliens came to kill us, what would they be driving, you know?
Yeah, and the tripods in the Spielberg version as well. They're also very like they're fitting of the time. They're big alien-looking, bizarre things that we don't understand, which certainly befits post 9/11 alien invasion movie.
Now, I must confess, I haven't seen the Spielberg movie in full.
Really?
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor, watch it. It's pretty solid. It's pretty good.
I've heard so much mixed shit about it that
Yeah,
I
it's
always
not
kind of
great, but it's good. It's really solid.
yeah.
I do enjoy it more than the original, I think.
I've been meaning to get around to it for quite some time. But answer me this question:
Yeah,
do the tripods have? And this is more a question about. Have you read the book?
not in full.
Okay,
See,
me
that's where
either.
we fall. It's like you've read the full book, right?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
Not in
okay,
full.
great.
So you might be the wrong person to ask. But in this version, the spaceships have like these like impenetrable shields, and that's why none of human weaponry can work against them. Did the tripods have that in the Spielberg movie?
Yes, that is a major plot point.
Okay,
In
because
fact,
because
go
one
ahead.
problem I've always had with tripods is just shoot the fucking legs out from under it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think that's why that's there. I think that's in the original book as well. Or at least their armor is just so impenetrable you can't get through it. But it's funny because in the Spielberg
You know,
version,
H.G. Wells wouldn't have had to write in a force field in his version because technology at the time it wouldn't have mattered. If a tripod showed up, you'd be fucked. Like,
well, I mean, if you fire a
what are you
couple
gonna
like
shoot at it with a musket? Like,
the cannons were a thing. They talk about machine guns in the book. Like machine guns were around. They just were shit.
yeah. But
What I was
again, the only thing he has to say is, "Oh, the armor is too tough. We can't."
Yeah, exactly. I know we keep coming back to Godzilla in this video, but we can't help it because we are who we are. In Spielberg's version, there's a moment where they're walking like through a town that's been destroyed by the tripods, and there's a whole bunch of people at this point. They're all being evacuated, and one of them goes, I heard that they took out some of them in Osaka, but they don't know why. And there is a fan theory that has always been Godzilla that destroyed one of the tripods, that Godzilla like erupted out of the sea and fought off the tripods in Japan. And there's a fan fiction thing that I read when I was a kid that like builds on that and actually recounts that, but obviously that's not the case. I mean, maybe Spielberg like intended that to be a Godzilla reference. I doubt it, but it's just a fun fan theory thing. But anyway,
I would love to see a tokusatsu version of War of the Worlds, like set in Japan. I guess that's sort of what Mysterians are.
yeah, but every like '60s Godzilla movie is that though. So
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Destroy All Monsters is very War of the Worlds.
Now that you say that, I guess yeah, it has been done. Now that I think about it, but I was just thinking like a movie of like
Especially
Godzilla.
like Final Wars too. Like Final Wars is exactly that.
But more so, what I'm thinking is just the aesthetic of Godzilla fighting like an army of tripods that comes to
Yeah,
Earth.
I mean, I would like to see a direct crossover. Sure. I mean, fuck. Imagine if H.G. Wells had lived to like write a Godzilla story. Like that would have been amazing.
Oh, yes.
Anyway.
I think.
So you ready to move on to my number 3, or is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I guess we've covered that pretty extensively.
It's a classic. It's a big budget blockbuster classic. I think it doesn't necessarily. If you don't appreciate the time period, I don't necessarily think you'll appreciate it to the fullest extent. But
And it's amazing how well it holds up, considering that this isn't just a 50 sci-fi movie. It's pretty early.
it's 53, dude.
It's 50 fucking 3. This thing predates fucking the alligator people by 6 years, and look how great it is.
Yo, wow, yeah, that is quite the marker, my friend. All right, so I definitely agree. It's a solid movie. It just doesn't sing to my particular tunes.
I just want to point out to the audience that I kid on the alligator people because I love the alligator people. And it's one of my honorable mentions. It was almost in my top 5, but I replaced it with War of the Gargantuas last minute.
I kid the alligator people because it has a lot of potential and some good scenes. No, it's good. I like it. Anyway, I'm just fucking with you. All right, so my number 3. We already talked about it. The Invisible Man from 1933. Hey, how about that? I just moved it to 3 for that reason. Now, it was originally
we went back 20 years.
Originally, I had 20 million miles to Earth over Invisible Man, and I was like, that does not work. The Invisible Man is a great movie. So early Universal sound horror movie, and it is a lot more of a it is made in that kind of golden age horror cycle of movies. So it is definitely
That's
classifiable as a horror movie.
It's interesting. Two 33 movies in your list.
233s.
Yeah, because you had wasn't Lost Souls 33?
Well, that's 32, but close enough. Yeah, you got a
32.
Point. Yeah, you got a point.
I thought you said it was 33 earlier.
I said it was impressive because it was pre-Kong in 33.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Any movie I see before King Kong that I don't just instantly hate, I'm impressed.
So wow, Lugosi did that only 1 year after Dracula. So
yeah, well, he was very hot at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's before he started taking roles out of desperation. I see.
This was probably the beginning of that, though. So, The Invisible Man from 33. Lugosi is not in that, to my knowledge, but there's a lot of other Universal actor staples in it.
No, but there's a wonderful performance by Claude Rains.
Claude Rains is the thing that makes this movie. You watch this movie because you want to watch Claude Rains play the role that defined his career. And for good reason. His voice is on display, and on display in prime form. He became very famous for his voice and how powerful and deep and elegant it is, and how much gravitas it brings to a role. And
That's the best part about the movie, is that it's all his voice. And it's not even like in an animated film where it's just your voice, but you have like animators animating a thing with you. Like, he's invisible until the very end of the movie, and at that point he's dead. So all of the performing comes out of his voice.
And his hand motions. Because, when he's under the bandages or whatever. But but his presence on set is very important. He brings a very distinct personality to that character.
But you don't get any of the facial expression. I forgot. Yeah, he does supply the body language as well. So I guess that's important also. But like, you don't get any facial features. You don't get any eyes, which is always a huge thing in acting. All you have really is movement and voice.
Yeah, and it is awesome. I never get tired of it. I watch just the scenes of him being invisible and fucking around just over and over again. It's a really fun movie, and I think that's one thing it has over the other classic Universal movies, is that it's just really fun.
Oh yeah,
it's funny. There's a lot of jokes in it. There's a lot of comedy. There's a lot of satirical elements. There's a police character in the movie, and this is a lot. And this is another H.G. Wells thing. Wow, I just realized. In the book, Wells liked to play with social satire a lot. The book is a lot more about that, because it's a lot more about him becoming a political outsider because of his invisibility. Whereas in the movie, he just goes crazy. And I know a lot of people who don't like this version of this story because it's just about a guy who takes a drug that makes him go invisible, and then he goes crazy and goes on a killing spree. But I don't know. I think it's really fun, and I think that there's still some substance to even that idea, because he knows that it's going to drive him crazy, or at least it seems that he does. They're I dropped something. They're very vague about how much he knew about what it would do before he did it. I mean, he intended to turn himself invisible, but it's unclear how like just deep into it he went, where he was just like, I don't care about myself anymore, I'm just gonna do this. Although, importantly, when we first see him entering the lodge at the beginning, he is there to try and find a cure. But it also seems like part of what drives him mad is not even just the fact that the drug drove him crazy. It's that he goes to this place trying to find peace and solitude to try and cure himself, and these people will not leave him the fuck alone.
Oh no, he goes to like a pub full of assholes, unfortunately.
I don't know. Well, I mean, yeah, they're very nosy motherfuckers, but I don't know what he's thinking either. Like, I don't know why he thinks this is a satisfactory place to conduct his experiments. Maybe he just doesn't think he has a choice for some reason, but I don't know. Go to a cabin in the middle of the woods. Why does he go to a pub?
Yeah. I think
it's very questionable.
I think my favorite scene in the movie, I don't even think it's debatable, it is the best scene in the movie. It's the single greatest depiction of insanity ever in a movie, I think, is the Invisible Man wearing nothing but pants, skipping down the road singing, "Here we go gathering nuts in May, nuts in May, nuts in..." It's fantastic.
I love when he just steals the guy's bike and rides off with it, and then he just throws it down onto the ground because he's a dick. Like, that's a great moment. And then there's of course the scene where he initially shows off his invisibility. And I mean, I guess this is a good time to talk about the effects. They don't all hold up importantly, but that's kind of the thing. They are astonishing for 1933.
Oh, yeah.
Same year as King Kong. And that's kind of important because they're both revolutionary special effects movies, because nothing like that had ever been done on that scale before. You had like weird mirror shots in silent movies and stuff, but never turning a man invisible with clothes over him. And that's really the thing. Like, you could have a guy get turned invisible or whatever, and it's fine because his clothes are invisible. But
like on the face of it,
physically turning transparent and then putting clothes over them, never been done.
Yeah, on the face of it, it sounds simple. Oh, we're gonna have a movie where there's a guy who's invisible. Oh, okay, so there's gonna be nothing there, and you'll have like a voiceover. But there's so much more to it than that. He interacts with the environment around him, and like shit's got to move as if somebody's touching it.
Well, yeah,
Then you
because
got
the idea is that it's not there. There is something there. You just can't see it, and that's the
exactly,
whole kind of tact that they take with it. That the other movies just the whatever attempts that were made both before and after this just don't follow. Like there's
exactly.
such an attention to detail. Like when he towards the end, spoilers for all of these, obviously. When the police have him surrounded when he's in the barn, and he runs out onto the snow, and it's really clever. They decide to wait until there's snow on the ground, so that way they can follow his footprints. And all the footprints are going, and then he gets shot, and he falls to the ground, and there's a really realistic body impression made on the ground.
Yeah.
It's great stuff.
And then the problem of clothes. The unmasking sequence is always sort of when you see this movie for the first time. The masking sequence is kind of a jaw dropper
Yeah.
because that's when you realize how great these 32 effects or 33 effects are at portraying.
It's also the most problematic scene though, because when he takes the bandages off his head, once he's got the face off, you can see that there's no bandages wrapped on the other side of the head. Like you can't see through him like you should be able to.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But again, it's 1933, and this is the first time they're doing anything like this. It's incredible, and they did it by putting black velvet all over him, and then shooting every single scene twice.
Yeah, it's almost like a precursor to your green screen and like wearing a green suit if you don't want to be seen on camera.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's the thing you were talking about the bandages, how you can't see the back of the bandages and you should be able to. That's something I think that you really notice more in repeat viewings. I never noticed it the first few times I saw the movie. Of course, I was also a child, so.
This one I didn't see until I was a little older, like until I was 15, 16.
No, okay. I had my Universal monster bases pretty well covered as a child.
I missed a lot of them. There's still a few of them I haven't seen. Like I've never seen the third Creature from the Black Lagoon movie, but that's okay because apparently it's really bad.
I haven't seen either of the sequels to Creature from the Black Lagoon.
The second one's not terrible.
Do they have a DVD release of those? Like, do they have a double feature of those that I can pick
Well,
up?
you have to get all three of them. There's a Universal like special edition DVD. You don't have it. You don't have the sequels in that Blu-ray thing you have.
No, the Blu-ray thing is just mostly the main movies. The only sequel that's in that pack is Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because she counts as her own separate monster.
Speaking of that, this is directed by the same guy as Bride of Frankenstein, James Whale.
Yes, James Whale.
The best, I think, of the Universal Golden Age directors.
But yeah, that 8-pack that I have, the Blu-ray is just Dracula, Frankenstein, Mummy, Invisible Man, Bride of Frankenstein, Wolfman, the Claude Rains Phantom of the Opera, and Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
And then I
gotcha.
Then I have the sequels on like separate DVDs, a lot of them.
There are some weak elements to this movie, primarily in the rest of the human cast.
That bitch in the beginning is so annoying.
Well,
like I know she's the source of most of the comedy in the beginning, but it's just I like her character. It's just her voice that gets on my nerves.
There's too much
honestly.
of her. It gets grating. Yeah, it's
She's
a
in the
time
Bride of
period
Frankenstein
thing.
She's in the Bride of Frankenstein as well.
With a much considerable role, a less considerable role, thank God.
And the reason is James Whale adored that woman.
That's the thing, though. It's clearly a taste issue. It's clearly like, well, I think she's really funny and charming, but everybody else thinks she's fucking annoying. So I'm just gonna keep using her because I'm James Whale and I don't care.
Well, I think she's a very clever person. I think comedically she's great. It's just her voice that gets me, honestly.
Yeah, I like her. I think she's fine. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think that there's too much of her in The Invisible Man. I think that he was smart to cut down her role in Bride of Frankenstein because she's not a really fascinating person to follow. She's just a funny presence to have in there.
I've been meaning to watch that movie where Ian McKellen played James Whale. I hear it's good.
Yeah, Gods and Monsters is apparently great. I haven't seen that either. I'd really like to see that. But anyway, back to The Invisible Man. The love interest, with all these things, the love interest is where these things fucking fall apart. They're the worst. They're nothing characters. They're not even characters. They're just plot points. They're just there to scream and cry and be sad. It's the worst.
You also have the subplot with the other scientist, but I mean it doesn't wind up really. It
I,
doesn't
I
really.
like that. I love all that.
Yeah, it just. I like it too, but at the
He's
end of the
not as
day,
good of an actor, though. That's the problem.
doesn't that subplot wind up being pretty like inconsequential?
No,
Um,
I disagree, because he ends up killing him in a fucking awesome way.
yeah, yeah. Well, he kills him, yeah, but after like, but what's the effect on the
Maybe
greater?
after you do a double somersault and break your ankles. It's great.
But did Kemp contribute anything toward you know what I mean? Like, was there
Well,
any
he's the first
point to it
person.
all?
He gets well. There's a big sequence where the police protect him from oh shit, what's oh my, I cannot believe I can't remember
You know
the
what? I
scientist's
think that
name.
is, now that I think about it, yeah, I think that is the point of him in the movie. He sort of gets the police involved, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, no. Well, he makes the police take him seriously, um, because at that point the Invisible Man has been reported, because he's not hiding. He's like, hey, look at me, I'm invisible. Oh wait, you can't see me. He's having a great old time. At one point, he goes into a police meeting where they're talking about what are we gonna do, and they're talking about how they don't believe it's real, and he just takes the hat off the cop who's saying that he's not real. It's great.
Yeah. I like how he sort of overestimates how good his powers are, though. Like when he's going crazy, he has that
Oh
famous
my
speech.
god, his ego goes off the scale.
'Cause he
Even
has
the
that,
moon's frightened of me, dude. It's a fucking big rock in space. It doesn't even know you're there.
he has this speech about how essentially he's going to take over the planet, and I'm like, hold on, Claude Rains. You're the Invisible Man. You're not fucking Magneto. Let's slow it down.
That being said, the way it's played, you do kind of believe that he could, though. Like the way he sells it, like the way he delivers that line, you're kind of like, maybe. And it's only because this is a universe where, again, theoretically, this is the only thing like this that it's ever existed. Like, this is the only supernatural occurrence that we have. So, if one person was invisible and everybody else was just kind of your run-of-the-mill dude and has run-of-the-mill technology and everything, maybe he could take over the world, because nobody else has that advantage, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because he doesn't cross over with any of the other Universal properties, does he?
Well, not
Until Abbott and Costello
yeah,
come along.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
Pleased to make
Precisely.
your acquaintance. I'm the Invisible Man. There's only one person who can honestly do that role aside from Claude Rains, and it is Vincent Price. They made a
Yeah.
good point. They made a good choice there.
That is the only good sequel to that movie. Certainly. And it's not even that great. What is the name of the original scientist in the first movie? I cannot fucking remember.
The guy who
Jack
turns into the
something.
Invisible Man. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Jack Griffin.
Jack Griffin, thank you. That's it. So so again, let's wrap up. Claude Rains is great. The special effects are incredible for the time. It's a really fun movie, and there's some dips and wanes in the cast, but all in all, it's pretty great. There's one point where a cop goes, "Oh well, he's invisible, all right," even though it's very clear that he's invisible. So
Yeah.
he just kind of states the obvious. It's a great
If you're
movie.
if you're familiar with James Whale, but maybe haven't seen this one yet, it definitely has his sense of humor about it.
I think it's better than Bride of Frankenstein.
Mm,
Maybe it's not as well made of a movie, but because it just doesn't have as big of a budget as Bride of Frankenstein did. Bride of Frankenstein was a huge budget movie.
I think in terms of writing, the plot is probably a bit what's the word I'm looking for?
It's a lot
Tighter.
Yeah, it's definitely. Plot of Bride of Frankenstein is all over the place. It's good, it's great, but it's not as tight as this. You're right. Yeah, I think it's one of his best movies, if not maybe his best movie. It's definitely better than the original Frankenstein. But I haven't seen all of his movies, so I wouldn't necessarily be able to say that with any kind of definitive stance.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm not terribly familiar with his work beyond what he did at Universal. I
he
should seek out.
directed a sequel to All Quiet on the Western Front, like the sequel book. He directed the movie version,
Oh,
which
really?
apparently he was very dissatisfied with. So, that's interesting. Maybe I have to give that a watch at some point. I think that's set in World War II.
Probably some studio interference because war movies are a bigger deal than like a horror movie, you
I
know.
think that was what killed it, and that's why he kind of backed away from the industry as well. But anyway, that's all I have to say about the Invisible Man. So let's move on to your number two.
All right. Well, filling in my number two spot, a true classic among sci-fi films, one of the big classics, I think. The big sci-fi blockbuster before Star Wars was a thing.